Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's catch up on some of the stuff that's going on locally here, Brandon. You want to start off where you were last night? Perhaps?
Sure.
You want to go with that? You were
Sure.
watching a little hockey,
I was, yeah. That's what I was doing a couple nights this week. But last night at AAA Ice Arena, as the Chi boys hockey team secured a 9-0 win over Menominee. They're still unbeaten in Big River's play. Actually, they clinched a share of the conference title last night. They can win it outright. They have 2 games next week. They can win it outright with a win one of those spots. But otherwise, actually, I need to correct myself. They have clinched the outright conference title because Hudson and New Richmond tied last night.
Okay, for boys hockey. Okay.
So Chippewa, I mean, they've got the outright conference title clinched.
Okay.
But the interesting thing about that is, talking with the team after the game, like they didn't know that at the time. They knew they had clinched a share, but the thing with it is, like, it's their first share of a conference title since 1989. So it's been a bit, but in many cases, that's something teams are they're kind of really celebrating, and that's like a major goal for them. But with this Chippewa team, I don't get the feeling that it was like it was something they wanted to do. But it's not like that wasn't kind of the be-all, end-all for them. And I think that just kind of speaks to the kind of the focus this team has. A team that's pretty experienced, a team that this week was ranked number 1 in the state by Wisconsin Prep Hockey, so they're number 1 ranked team. They're the number 1 seed for the section, so they can have a couple home playoff games, as long as they obviously win in the earlier rounds. But this is just a very focused team right now. It's won 12 games in a row. It hasn't lost since before Christmas. Like, it's firing on all cylinders. Defensively, they're playing really well. They've posted 4 straight shutouts. I mean, they outshot Menominee like 4-1 as far as shots on goal. Offensively, they're deep, but they're balanced. Last night Drew Bovey had a hat trick. You had 3 other guys with 2 goals each. It's a team that you can just see when it clicks what it looks like, and right now this is what it looks like, and it's very impressive for longtime coach Scott Parker.
So they clinched, but is it still, because the regular season ends next week?
Yes, last week is the last week of the regular season.
So with that, you still got Memorial coming off that big win against Bash last week. Could you see a lot of these teams still in playoff?
Oh yeah,
a lot of these BRC teams.
Looking at that section in the playoffs, Chi is the 1 seed, Memorial's the 4 seed, so those 2 teams could meet in the sectional semis.
Okay.
On the other half, you've got Bash as the 2 seed, and you've got Hudson as the 3 seed.
Okay.
So those could possibly be the 2 sectional semifinal matchups.
Wow.
But Chippewa plays at Hobbs against Memorial next Thursday to close the regular season.
Okay.
So that's, even though there won't be any conference title implications there, it's still going. Obviously, that's still going to be a big one. That's always a big game when those 2 get together. Memorial would love to be able to grab a win over Chippewa going into the postseason, knowing they might see them again. That would be a big momentum booster if they could get that. On the other hand, Chippewa, there are many times over the years where they've had the chance to win, at least 2 games against Memorial. And that's a rivalry game. Like, I think this schedule works out well. I think for Chippewa going into the postseason, that they play New Richmond on Tuesday and then Memorial Thursday, and that those are 2 games where, even though the postseason's ahead, you can't really look ahead because those are 2 good teams. New Richmond, they won the conference last year. I believe they won the Division II state title last year. Even though there's many new faces, still you've got kids on that team that won the state title last year, and again they're coming off a tie with Hudson. So those, you like to be challenged going into the playoffs. And I think that's going to benefit Chippewa, but also Memorial as well, having Chippewa right there on the edge of the regular season and coming off, you mentioned the big win over Spash.
Yeah. It seems like this section, I feel like maybe we kind of talk about it every time we get to hockey and that, but it feels like whoever comes out of the section's got to be they're going to be battle tested.
They're going to be battle tested. They're probably going to be seated pretty highly once you get down to state, regardless of who it is. So you're right. Like, if you're that one team that makes it out, you're going down to Madison feeling like you're
confident.
Yeah, you're confident because you play, and you would have beat these teams in the playoffs, but these teams in the section have all played each other already during the regular season too. So it's not like that's the only time you played somebody and you beat them.
Yeah. Because as you mentioned, Chi won, Stevens Point 2. Do you think if Stevens Point beat Memorial, is Stevens Point the 1 seed
I think
since they were ranked number 1 in the state.
Probably. I think you could make that case, and they also want to win over Chippewa. They beat the last team Chippewa lost to was Stevens Point.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that case could have been made, but that's all.
Don't matter now, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, I know a little earlier too in the week you were watching some girls hockey.
Correct.
Right? Girls hockey. So, are they kind of on the same timeline?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah. The next week is the end of the regular season. I was at Tuesday's Chippewa Falls Menominee versus Eau Claire area game. It was a game that Chippewa Falls Menominee won 4-0, and that concluded the Big Rivers regular season for Chippewa Falls Menominee. They still got 2 games left. They play at Viroqua tonight, and then they have a big one next Thursday at Central Wisconsin.
Okay.
Which is a co-op of teams around Wausau, and that's a team that's really that we talked about this section for boys hockey. For girls hockey, I'm very interested to see how that works because in all likelihood St. Croix Valley, who was the Big Rivers champion, they'll be the 1 seed. Otherwise, you've got the 5 teams from the Big Rivers. You've got Cooley region, which is a lacrosse-based co-op, and you've got Black River Falls, which is a co-op, but Black River Falls is the main school in that. And a lot of these teams have very similar records. Chippewa Falls, Menominee, Hudson, Western Wisconsin, Black River Falls, they're all very similar in their resumes, and they've all kind of beat each other a little bit. Chippewa Falls owns a win over Black River Falls. They have a win and a tie against Hudson. They split with Western Wisconsin. But I'm curious to see how that lines up because you're going to have 7 teams. And you're going to have probably 4 of them, those 4 I mentioned, that feel like they have a pretty good case for being the 2 through the 5. And unfortunately, one of them is going to get left out in the cold. But the 2 seed to me is going to be the most interesting there because of the teams you have that can make the case because that could mean 2 home games. That could mean avoiding St. Croix Valley until the sectional finals. And I think that's this weekend. So I'm, for this area as far as girls hockey goes, that's what I'm curious about. And I mean, I'm also curious, Eau Claire area is a team that's probably going to be a lower seed, but I'm not sure that's a team I would be super excited to play because they beat some good teams this year. They beat the Fox City Stars last week in a team Chippewa Falls Menominee lost to. That's a team that has good goaltending, that has some, that can put some goals in the net. So this section over the years has been very balanced, and it hasn't always been the top seed that's dominated it. Last year Hudson made it to state, and they were, I think, the 3 seed. So this is one where if we get to 3 weeks from now and suddenly you're seeing maybe a team you weren't expecting out of there, that's maybe a bit of a lower seed. Don't be too surprised because that's how it works. Heck, the year Chippewa Falls Menominee won state, they were, I think, a 4 seed. They got hot.
Yeah.
I mean, hockey is one of those sports. I put it up there with baseball in the playoffs where you get a team that's hot, you get a hot goaltender, you can definitely go further than maybe some people thought you could.
Absolutely. Basketball wise, do you want to start with the boys or do you want to go girls? Where do you want to lead off here right now?
Good question. I mean, we can start with the girls.
Okay.
In the last few weeks in the Big Rivers, I think the team that's really done a good job of making some movement is Hudson. They have picked up some wins. They picked up the win excuse me. I had a moment there. Picked up the win Tuesday over Eau Claire Memorial, 49-42. Eau Claire Memorial now they're half game up in the conference.
Okay.
We talked about last week.
Yeah.
Getting their Coach Brandon Fanning getting his 100th win. Right now the Old Abes are a half game up on both Hudson and Menominee. There's still some games to be played there. Rice Lake is they're in the hunt, but they would need some help at this point. In the Western Colorado, McDonald is up on Fall Creek by I believe a half a game.
Okay.
Those 2 teams actually play next Tuesday. Big week next week for the McDonald girls because they play McDonald Tuesday, or they play Fall Creek Tuesday, and they play Regis Thursday. And those are the 2 closest competitors. I mean, and McDonald's unbeaten right now in conference. They've got the 1 loss to Hudson. But in the Dun St. Croix, last night a big win for Elk Mound over Colfax. Dun St. Croix right now runs through Elk Mound. They're unbeaten. They're 10-0 in conference. They're 20-0 overall. So I mean they're getting closer, I think, to being able to clinch at least a share of that conference title in the Dun St. Croix. on the boys' side of things, in the Western Clover Belt, Bloomer's got a pretty good control on the conference right now. They're up, I think, 3 games or 4 games over the field. So, I mean, I believe they already clinched a share of the conference title. They can actually win it outright with one more win.
Okay.
And they've still got a few games left to do that. So they're in the catbird seat, as they like to say.
Right.
In the Big Rivers, you still got Memorial up top.
Now, how big of a loss, though, is that with Cooper Jesperson?
That's big. I mean, that's big. He's an outstanding player. And it's just, it's just such a bummer above everything else, because when you get to this time of year and you get into the postseason, you want to see what all these teams can do full strength. Because this is still a very good Memorial team elsewise, but that's,
you're losing a kid who averages 20 points a game.
Exactly. You're losing you're losing someone who's your leading scorer, and it's just you're just gonna have to put a little bit more on other people to kind of shoulder that load, because there's no way you can ever fully replace a guy like that. You just try to do the best you can.
Right.
The Old Abes are up 2 games on River Falls and Hudson in the conference standings, so they've got a little cushion as far as that goes, but I'm sure right now, their focus is not only on the conference, but also trying to secure a really good seed. They picked up a good win over Hudson Tuesday. They've got a little time off right now. They're off until next week when they play North. As we know, that's always a spirited affair in any sport when those 2 teams get together. But
so for basketball, I'm just trying to find some timelines here. Is there a couple weeks left of the regular season?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
because is it like hockey where we're going to know seedings and they still have some regular season games?
I think we'll know at the end of next week.
Okay.
I think it would be girls next week, boys the week after.
Okay.
That's usually like a week and a half before the playoffs.
Okay. And they've still got some regular season games, or in terms of the Clover Belt, you got a crossover game.
Yeah, you've got. I think most teams in the probably in the Western Clover Belt still have like 3 or 4 games left.
Okay.
Because you have a couple conference games, like I mentioned. In McDonald's case, they have one more because they have a makeup game yet. That second Regis game was the one that was snowed out, a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the crossover game.
And you still have, I just noticed off the top of my head, but like even maybe a non-conference like Chippewa Falls and Altoona boys.
Yeah, you've still got some team. Like next Tuesday, McDonald boys play Marshfield Columbus, who's the top-ranked team in boys in Division 5.
Wow.
And even though McDonald's in Division 4 this year, that's still going to be a really nice litmus test for them. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you've got some fun kind of non-conference games sprinkled in here in different sports. I mentioned Chippewa Falls Menominee playing Central Wisconsin and girls hockey.
Right.
Central Wisconsin's always a really good team. A few years ago, that was actually the state semifinal matchup when Chippewa Falls Menominee won state. That's the team they beat to go to the title game. So, you've got some of these teams that are going to still, even if it's not in conference, going to get some good tests. But, wrestling, you've got conference meets this weekend. I'll be in Neillsville tomorrow for the Clover Belt Conference Championships. You've got other ones going on around here. You've got for boys swimming, you got the Big Rivers Championships. I believe that's at Memorial.
Okay.
That starts today with diving, and then you've got swimming tomorrow, and then you've got sectionals for swimming next week, and you've got regionals for wrestling next week, and you've got gymnastics is coming up on their conference meets as well. So it's
because Chi High Gymnastics just won their triangular home one, didn't they?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And, we're getting about that time. February, I think you can make a case, might be my busiest month. February, October.
Yeah.
I would, May maybe, but May and June kind of get split up.
Right. And a lot's dependent on weather and makeup games too, right? When you get to that.
So, but no, this is a busy time, but it's such a fun time because it is just go, 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 go.
Right. Exactly. So, Blue Gold wise, you want to check out what's on the docket here for the Blue Golds. They also got some sports that are going to be wrapping up some of their regular season stuff and getting ready for the upcoming postseason here. But first off, we got some women's and men's swimming and diving. Gymnastics is also going to be at La Crosse. Speaking of gymnastics, don't forget to check out that latest episode of the Rollin' with the Golds podcast, where we chat with head coach Jesse from the gymnastics team over there. Men's hockey going to be taking on River Falls. That's tonight. Then this weekend for wrestling, for that wrestling team that has just been kind of hitting on all cylinders for the Blue Golds, and they've been traveling across the country. They get to stay home for a while, but they got the Don Parker Open. Shout out my former professor, Don Parker, over there, too. So they got the Don Parker Open going on this weekend, too. Indoor track and field is at La Crosse as well. And we know, basketball-wise, they're going to be in action coming up this weekend as well. You got the boys and women's team going to be taking on Oshkosh. And you look at their schedule, there's only a few games left here, too, before you're starting to get into some conference action.
It's getting down to it.
It is. Kind of feel like when that calendar turns to February, it really gets it into gear. And as you kind of mentioned, one of your busiest times, but stuff starts to wrap up here.
It's fun. It's a fun time for it.
Absolutely. All right, big thanks, Brandon, for breaking down the local scene for us.